Hi, friends. I'm so excited today to interview a new friend of mine, Meisha. Thanks for being on Interview with the Pros.
Thanks
We
for
are
having
looking for,
me.
yay. I think the excitement comes I love connecting my friends to friends, and I love people like hearing each other's stories. And so today we're going to enter into your story and learn a little bit about what you've done and what you do. You are in high level media, and that is the career that you have been kind of journeying through in the last 30 some years of your life. And I am excited to hear more about that. So tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure. So, hi everyone. Happy to be here. Yes, my name is Meisha Watson, and as you can probably tell, was born in England and moved here when I was a teenager. But my career right now is absolutely buzzing. There's been a lot happening for a long time. I'd say about 8, 9 years ago, I started acting in downtown Toronto and had a wonderful career of specifically acting on TV. But I also did stage and I did a lot of voice and stuff like that. And then I got the opportunity to host on YTVs the Zone, which was my dream because in England there's a show called Blue Peter. And I was like, always wanted to be a host on national television. And while I was at YTV, we won tons of awards. And just by the grace of God, I got to just be funny and got to inspire children to be their weird selves as much as possible. And then directly after YTV, I mean, I guess right before the end of YTV, I said, I need to write my own stuff. I need to be a producer. I need to curate my career. I need to take control of my career. And so I left YTV to a lot of people's surprise. I think a lot of people thought I would like go towards like EC Canada or Big Brother, like a lot of the other hosts have done in the past. But I was like, I need to write my own stuff. I'm tired of saying other people's words. And so I left that show and I got the opportunity at Yes TV to make my own show. And that's where I am today. I have my own show called Hey Meisha. It airs on Yes TV every Friday and Saturday morning, if you're wondering. Also on a lot of streaming platforms in the US as well as Europe and YouTube. And it's so much fun. I get to write, produce, host, and I get to hire actors and give other actors the opportunity to talk about Jesus in a way that's fun and funny and exciting. And so life's been pretty wild for a long time.
I love what you do. I've actually watched the show. I watched the episodes, watched them with my kids. I was like, this is so cool to see the content that you're producing because you're using media as an influence
Mhm.
to really shape generations, I would say, because you've worked with like littles and then teens, yeah, like and the preteens, like every kind of age bracket and generation that who is really growing up in a digital world. And so what are your thoughts on that? How have you been intentional to influence, using media to influence every stage of really childhood, even up to adulthood?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny. I really enjoy learning from children and asking children what it is that they enjoy doing and how they like to be entertained um, and so when I started making my show, I said, even though I've spent years and years in the entertainment industry and then also years within the kids sector specifically, I was like, I won't assume that I know everything there is to know about kids and what they want. And so with Hey Meisha, I got the opportunity to cast Good News Kids. And I have 4 kids who are in Ontario who are actors and dancers and singers, and they're amazing. But I got to talk to them about how they spend their days and what they do. And so the show is actually really focused around the way kids choose to, like, what kind of entertainment they choose. That was really important to me. A lot of creators will make content that they think this is what they need. But I was like, I'm going to be on uphill battle already with children, trying to get them to sit there and listen to Bible focused content. That I said, I'm going to make sure that they watch it and it looks like the content they're already seeing on Nickelodeon or Disney or Teletoon or whatever, but it's going to be fully Bible based. Like there will be no question that we are talking about Jesus himself. And so that's what we've decided to do. Within the digital realm, our content looks like YouTube. It looks like TikTok. It looks like music videos. It doesn't necessarily run the same way as a linear television show, which is like 20 minutes and 50 seconds. And, there's commercials in the middle. It doesn't look like that. It looks like YouTube. It looks like stuff that kids are used to digesting. And yet we've just covered it in the Bible, and it's been a success so far. I think primarily because we're like, kids want digital. They want short form content. They want to laugh. They want to see people who look like them. That all of that stuff is so important. And so that's what we've ingrained in and throughout the show.
It's quite incredible. I highly recommend folks to go check it out. Even if you're like, I don't have kids, like, who cares? Just go watch. It is super entertaining to me. I was like, this is awesome. It's very well done. And so you've chosen to take this route of excellence and invest your talents and your abilities now in Christian media. How did you get there? How is that shift? What happened for you to go?
You know how the Lord works. I was like, I want to make content that means something. I'm tired of telling kids, everything will work out great. Like, life is easy. And I was saying things that were just really kind of just, they didn't have any basis towards them, because we couldn't talk about God in anything. I remember I had a segment on YTV. It was like a commercial, and it was really funny, but I was very clearly singing a gospel song, but I was like kind of switching it up, and they didn't allow it to air. And I was so mad. So I guess for me, it was like really important that I had content that had the Bible in it, which whatever I would do next, I was like, whatever I do next, it's gotta be honest, and my identity, like who I am, will change throughout my whole life. But the one thing that's solid is that I'm a child of God. And so I didn't realize I was going to make Christian content when I left YTV, but God was like, this is where you're at. And there's no way that I'll know if this is exactly what I'll do for the rest of my career. But it's so obvious that right now God has such a calling on my life to do Christian content for kids at this very time. And I think it's also because within my faith, like, I've not always been a devout Christian my whole life. And so in the things that I'm learning, it's very like Jesus 101 sometimes. And so it's really clear, because I'm like, I just learned that. And so now I'm going to preach that. It's like, learn one, teach one. And so that's kind of like how I've run my whole show, is that I'm not talking from a place that's really complicated, because I don't consider myself to be a very complicated person. Jesus died on the cross for us all, point blank, period. That goes in the show. And I think that's kind of the way the show is going to continue to be. And anything I make moving forward, it's always going to be based on who I am as a person. And maybe it's not going to be necessarily directly saying the word of God, but it will always be covered in his presence.
That's really powerful, because you weren't trying to hide who you were, even when you weren't in Christian media. You were being you. You were sharing, like, your gospel song comes out funny, right? But you weren't hiding who you were. So give us maybe some examples of how folks that are not working in a Christian environment, how are you being light, like in a practical way? How are you just, I mean, you weren't preaching a big sermon and all that stuff. How are you just loving people and being you?
Yeah, sometimes I always wondered, like, when I used to work in the bar scene. So like, I was a shots girl for like a long time. I left university and was like, I'm gonna do tequila and like give people tequila, because you make a lot of cash. And that's gonna be my life for a couple of years. And when I was there, that's when I met someone who went to church. And then they invited me to church. And then that's how I got saved, literally in a bar. But while I was in that space where I was still working in the bar scene, but then going to church on Sunday, people would start saying that there was something different. Like, there's something different about you. And there's something brighter. And they would say stuff like that, like literally synonyms of light. Like, oh, you're shining differently. Like, it's just so vibrant. And I was just like, I think this is who I am. Like, I think I'm a Christian. Like, I think there's something more to life than because I didn't feel like I was living in darkness before. I just thought this is life. But then when I got to know who God is, I'm like, oh no, this is life. And that's kind of been, I guess, the most important thing as far as like being in a place that doesn't necessarily know who God is, or it's not a Christian environment, I was just like being really honest about where I was at. So still learning about faith and still having questions about faith and church, and like I was in a mega church, so it was like thousands of people as well. And I think I was like trying to find my space in there, and what is community, and I was just being really honest about it. And so I think that is what the people who were around me wondering about my faith were really seeing. They were like, there's something more honest about you. There's one thing about Christians that, or people who follow God, we're always looking into ourselves. Like, am I doing this right? Am I honoring God? Am I praising God enough? Am I being honest with people? What do I believe? We're always asking these questions. Every Sunday, every Bible study, we always have questions that help us to look inside ourselves. And that was what was happening with me. So I think that is what was perceived as light. Really, it was the Holy Spirit. People were experiencing the Holy Spirit through me. But at that time, I think there was just that. I was learning more about who I am. I feel like I was meeting myself for the first time. That sounds so corny, but it's true. I was getting to know myself for the first time.
Wow. And possibly in that what God intended for your life to be. And so as you're exploring that, what kind of practices did you put into place? Maybe it wasn't right away, but maybe now. What kind of practices did you put in place to continue that connection with God when everything in this world wants to pull us away and distract us, and there's so much noise, and you are in media? Like, it's not like there's a lot of noise in media to pull you in a bunch of different directions. Yeah, what does that look like on the daily for you?
Yeah, it's so crazy because now I look at what my spiritual practices have been over the last 10 years, and they've been so different. Like, they continue to change. And that's one thing I really kind of wanted to say in this conversation with you is my spiritual practices have all changed depending on where I am in life and what God is really tugging on in my heart. But one spiritual practice that has never left me is prayer. So even when I was not in church on Sunday, or giving my life to God, or denying myself, all those kind of things, I always knew that God was listening somehow. And now I'm like, yes, he is, obviously. But I think prayer is the most important thing. I feel like prayer has been the furnace room of my faith the whole time. So even when I had questions, or I don't know if I believe that, God, like, I'm really confused here. Like, can you walk me through this? Or thank you for this, God, praising God. Like, all these different ways of spending time with God has been all through prayer. And I grew up in a family that was all about prayer. But when I left the home, and like, I left home at like 17 years old. So from 17 to, I guess I never went back home, but like 17 to when I came back to faith, I would still pray. I'd still kind of, hey God, like, sorry about that last night, or whatever, or can you help me get through this difficult time? And I remember I went to college, and then I went through to university, and I still had so many questions about who God is, and I started questions about who I am. And prayer has always been that refuge, communicating with God personally, honestly. The hardest thing for me is when a new Christian feels like they have to pray like I do, or pray like you do, or pray like the pastor did. It's like, it has to come from your heart, because you've been born and you have the words and the story and the past and the history and the present that God has given you. So you need to pray authentically from you. So that's it, prayer, like 100% spiritual practice. But I also want to say that before COVID, there was this beautiful time where it was maybe like 2 or 3 years, where every single day, it was like 2.5 years, every single day that I would go to work, because I work 2 hours from my home, that's where the studio is, and I don't drive. So I took transit, which was nice, which meant that I wasn't in control of the trip. So I got to listen to sermons all the way to work for the first hour, and then worship music for like half an hour. And then I could pray for half an hour. So I had all this time every single morning, 5 days a week, where I got to spend with God. And I just want to give a shout out to this one book. So this is a book by Judah Smith called A Devotional Journey Through God's Illogical Love. And I needed this book during that time. It's a 40-day devotional, because I was like, God, you love me, but I don't understand it. And I don't know why you love me. And like, why do I deserve it? And this just walked me through that time. So I think these books are really helpful to me, like just buying devotional books, because there's times in your life where you're like, I actually need to like really dive deeper into this specific question with God. And I need to spend time with God on this specific thing. And these books have been I've been finding a lot of devotionals that can walk me through um, different stages in my life. And this was a big one. This is probably one I'll start again soon enough and kind of go through again. But devotional books, love, and prayer and worship. Singing. I'm not great, but I like to sing.
Well, we hear that you say this is like a common thing that's coming up. It's the singing. I just want a sample. Actually, if you watch Hey Meisha, you kind of get some samples.
I do
Good.
sing and stuff.
Could you define a devotional book for our audience? That
Yeah.
what is that category, that genre of book?
Yeah, so if you get to know me, I'm all about short form content. I love YouTube videos. I love any sermon that's 45 minutes with 3 points and a conclusion. Love. Like I like snappy stuff, and then I like to spend more time with God after. And that's what devotionals help me do. Devotionals are generally short snippets into a Bible practice or a spiritual practice or a story in the Bible or a question. So this book does a lot of kind of a study into specific Bible verses and where this Bible, who said this Bible verse, what was happening within the time. And then it'll ask you questions regarding how you feel about what you've just read. And that's why I like it, because it might be 1 or 2 pages, but then you read it, you take your time with it, you pray about it, and then you can kind of like chew on it all day. And I like doing devotionals with friends. I highly recommend, if you got the money in the moment, Amazon it to your friends so you can do a devotional with them. I also do devotionals. I have a group called the Bible Babes. I'll shout them out because they're probably in this call. It's just 4 girls, 4 of us, who we do YouVersion Bible devotions. So the actual devotionals on there are, some of them are audio, so you can just listen. But in the actual app, you can type in your revelations from the Bible verse, and then it notifies you when your friends have done it, and then you can talk about it. So that's been really helpful to me, is to do it with other people as well. But yeah, devotionals are just a really simple way to inject the Bible into your life. If you're just starting out and you're like, this Bible is big and there's a lot of words and there's a lot of names, I would 100% start with the devotional that someone you trust can recommend to you, because it worked for me.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. What would you say to encourage women who are watching, who are being influenced or feel that weight of comparison that they have experienced or seen in media, specifically social media? How would you encourage them in this moment in time, as you are? I mean, you're using media as a positive platform, yet sometimes we feel it as something that can be negative. And so, how would you speak into the life that feels almost like a burden at
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, it does. I think even personally, I have my days where I feel so less than, and I'm like, I know you love me, God, but I don't know how I feel about myself right now based on what I've seen on social media. And I think we've all had times when we're like, I need to get off of Instagram because it has like, affected my mental health in some sort of way. Even if it's slight, you just have days when you're like, I don't feel like a glam girl today, or I don't feel even smart, like attacking your intellect. Um, and even last year with the Black Lives Matter movement really kind of having its day in the sun, um, I felt like not enough of an activist, like I wasn't doing enough. And I felt, almost a bit traumatized by being an activist and then feeling like maybe I'm not strong enough. And there were all these feelings of like, I am nowhere near where I'm supposed to be. And what really helped me was being honest about it with people I trust. I was able to tell them, hey, I'm not able to do this right now. I don't feel good enough right now. And I remember this one wonderful, she's my counselor, but she said, you don't have to be a lion today. And I remember just feeling like, oh, wait, so like I'm good enough. I am everything God has called me to be. I am a full person. I'm finished. I'm a finished work of art. And yet I am still growing. And I still don't have to be amazing today. I don't have to be what the world considers to be amazing today. I'm good enough because I'm God's child. Wow. Like, I think I just needed that wake up. And specifically to the lion analogy, the reason it worked so perfectly for me at that time was because I felt like I had to constantly do something on social media, like say something, like I need to have an opinion on everything. Like anything that happens, I'm like, didn't watch it yet. So I feel like I got to watch it so I can have an opinion on it. And I didn't feel like I had it. And I was like, I can't be a influencer. I can't be a strong Black woman. I can't be a a content creator who's doing the most. Like I was like, I can't do it. And I felt in that moment when she said, you don't have to be a lion today because God is always on that throne. Like God is always your lion. He's fighting every battle before you get there. You know, like he's prepared that path for you. And the days where you feel like so less than, he is always he's always doing it. He's always there. And you're gonna have days where you feel like you're nowhere near good enough, nowhere near smart enough. You haven't quite figured it out yet. And we all know that Instagram is all a highlight reel because we put certain things in our stories that disappear in 24 hours and certain things in our feed that do not disappear in 24 hours because certain things are, like this is framing who I am as a person on online. And this is more of like a little, tidbit of who I am. So maybe I can put that out there. All of it is highlight reel, all of it. And so I felt really confident in being authentic about the fact that I'm not less than at all because God is all. And just in that, I feel so much healthier. And I still have my days, but now that I have my community around me of people who know that I feel less than in these specific situations, and they reach out to me and we talk about it, I feel that much more healthy. Like my mental health feels better because I have a community who walks me through those days. And then I walk them through those days. Do you know what I mean? Like when I look like this and I have my makeup done, I feel like a superhero, like come at me. But then I have my days when I'm like, I can't think of a joke or a Bible verse or a story to save my life. I'm not a director, I'm not a producer. And my friends and family are there to help me through.
So wise, so wise. Thank you for sharing that. I've just been so inspired by our conversation. I'm extremely grateful that you said yes to this invitation, and I know that those that are listening in, I can't wait to hear their comments, see their comments, their questions, and hopefully we get to have more discussions like this in the future. Thank you, Meisha, for joining us today.
Thanks, Anne. Bye.